Okay, we're Joe and Pat Pace, like in the pecani sauce, as if you didn't know, in case somebody's watching that doesn't know us. I was born at a very early age. I wanted to be near my mom, you know. So I was born on January the 7th, 1932, in the fabulous city of Kansas City, Missouri. And in case you don't know where that is, that's like the armpit of the country, you know. And we moved to California and I was about 5 when we moved here. And I didn't meet Pat for another almost 20 years, you know. So, but I survived up until that time. And when I met her,
let me tell where I was born.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I was born, my parents moved from Arkansas to California, and 9 months later I was born. And
what's that tell you?
We lived in Upland, California. I was born in the county hospital in San Bernardino, California. And my mother never wanted me to tell anybody that because this was Depression days and this was a county hospital and she had to go there because they had no money. So she was always embarrassed that she had to have me there. Anyway, when I was about 3 and a half, we moved to El Monte, California, and lived there until a long time, till I was 39. And now we'll start with when Joe and I met.
Yeah, we met in downtown LA on approximately the end of February of 1955. I went to work for Beneficial Finance Company, and she happened to be working there, along with a bunch of other girls. They were all kind of spoken for.
Three other girls.
Yeah, they were all kind of spoken for, so I didn't mess around with them. And I didn't really pay much attention to her either until they started sicking her on me, you know. And so we finally got together, and a few months later we decided we'd get married, and we did. And
wait, back up there. I want to add something to our courtship. I was 17 and he was 23, and the girls, I was going with another guy that was in the Coast Guard and he was away. They kept saying, Joe is a cute guy. Why don't you go with him? And nah, you know, so they arranged for us to go to, the girls and they invited Joe to go to Alvera Street for dinner one night after work. And they all rode the bus, and so did I, into LA. So they lived in Hollywood, and one lived in Alhambra, and I lived in El Monte. So they took the two in Los Angeles, Hollywood home, Joe did. Then he took Ramona to Alhambra, and then me, I was the last one. So anyway, he took me home, and I thought he would never call me again because we were going to be going on vacation, and then he was changing jobs and going to go to work for Goodyear. So that was on a Wednesday or Thursday night when we went to Alvera Street. On Saturday, my mother had told me, I want you to finish this robe that you want to take on vacation, and so don't go anyplace. So in the early afternoon, Joe called and asked me to go to
roller derby.
Roller derby.
Roller derby.
And he lived in Compton with his grandmother, and he couldn't remember Daddy's name to get my telephone number, so he drove from Compton to El Monte and called me because he could look it up in the directory. And so he'd driven all that way, no freeways, all that kind of stuff. And so I told him I'd go, and I disobeyed my mother. And we went, and I still survived. Anyway, then we went on vacation, and when I came back from vacation, he was working someplace else, so I thought I'd never see him, but I did. Anyway, now you can continue.
And we got married.
No, Joe, tell what happened. You don't know dates?
We eloped.
Yeah. We had our first date on the 28th or 29th of April, and Joe asked me to marry him, I don't know what day, but about a month or month and a half after that. And then Mother and Daddy said that I couldn't get married until I was 18, which was November. And we could not wait, we thought, so I was going to spend the night, supposedly, with Maribel, my girlfriend, and we left with Howard and Lola, Joe's friends. They went with us to Yuma, Arizona. And Maribel, the best friend I've ever had, she took a note over to my parents, Mother and Daddy, the next day, and said that we had gone to Las Vegas to get married. Well, we were planning to go to Las Vegas, but we couldn't because Lola got sick on that road. It was dippy in those days, and so she said she'd go, but we'd had to go to Yuma. Also, Joe's other friend worked for Purex, and I wasn't 18, so they changed my birth certificate, you know, with photocopies and all that kind of stuff.
Forged it.
Yeah, said I was 8. They changed the 7 to a 5. Is that what you did? I was born in 37, and he changed it to I was born in 35. Anyway, okay, now you can tell.
And then we got married. In Yuma, and the first thing we did after we got married was we went swimming.
At the hotel. Howard and
It
Lola
was
and Joe.
111 degrees that day. Hottest day I ever seen in my life, you know. It was terrible. And we celebrated that night by going out, had a steak dinner. Remember, it cost $6 a piece. And then went bowling. And that was the end of the honeymoon.
This was July 3rd. It was on a Sunday, and then we had to come home on Monday, and Joe had to face my daddy. I have never seen him so nervous as he was. He was afraid to see Daddy. He didn't know if he'd punch him in the nose or whatever. So you remember what Daddy said?
Yeah, he said, well, he says, I kind of disagree, but congratulations. And he stuck his hand out, you know, and I thought he was going to hit me.
And Mother cried. So
she still cried the rest of her life. You know, she cried.
she got over that. But, and then they gave us a reception about 2 weeks after that, a nice reception in their backyard, and we had a wedding cake, and I got a new dress, and it was, I thought they, for us eloping and hurting them so bad, I thought that was very sweet of them, and we appreciated it. And what else was I going to say? Oh, tell about our first 2 weeks of being married, where we were.
We stayed at my grandmother's house, a little bitty place in Willowbrook, and she moved out and lived with my aunt.
No, she went home with your folks.
Oh, okay, she went home with my folks. See what I remember. Yeah. And we had 2 weeks to go, and we had $20 between us to last us.
And I had to take the red car to work in LA from there.
And we made it. But when Grandma came back, she didn't have any food left in her pantry. So.
Oh. And I met Joe's parents the 2nd of July. They happened to come down that 4th of July weekend. And I hadn't met them, only Grandmother Crancy, and I guess I'd met Dorothy, hadn't I? And Hayward? I'm sure I had. Anyway, they came down and we were over there, so I got to meet them, and they knew we were going to get married. But when Joe's parents, when Grandmother Crancy told them that Joe was engaged, they said, well, who is it this time? So I guess they didn't think it would take, but it did.
But she was the only one I ever really got a ring for, though. So that must have meant something.
After that 2-week period, we moved to El Monte, and we moved into Mr. and Mrs. Alderson's house. They had 3 apartments. They were from our church, and we called them Uncle George and Mrs. Alderson. They were my youth leaders in high school when we were young. And we lived in their little tiny apartment, paid $55 a month for the rent, and that included all utilities and everything. And it was 2 rooms and a bathroom. It was a kind of kitchen, living room, bedroom with a Murphy bed that folded out of the wall. And we lived there for 10 months. And then we moved to Delta. Daddy had a rental there, a little small 2-bedroom place, and we were expecting Judy by that time. And we moved there in May, I think, and Judy was born in September. And she was born breech, and now they don't even do that. They automatically do a C-section. So Joe knew that it was a little girl 45 minutes before she was born because she came bottom first. And so anyway, of course, he wasn't in the room when I was in labor and stuff. They didn't do that in those days. And we were so pleased that we had a little girl. And she was a good baby, and we brought her home, and she thrived. Margaret and Bill came down to see her, and I was very, very strict about schedules. And Margaret said later on, she says, I couldn't even pick her up unless it was the right time. If she was if she was asleep, you couldn't get her, and if she woke up before she was supposed to eat, you couldn't feed her till the right time. But she said later, she said she got better as they had more children. So anyway.
Mm. Then we had Sherry.
Well, we lived there. We lived in Rosemead for about 4 years, and then we had good neighbors there that were our age, and I took care of Jean Warner's, Varney then, son Bruce, and he was 3 years older than Judy, and took care of him until they moved back to Massachusetts. And I took care of Cherie Stanford, which was Joy and Stan's little girl. So I had a busy time taking care of my own children at that time, and Judy and Sherry. Judy was born September 13th, 1956, and then Sherry was born October 15th, 1958, and we lived there until they were about, we moved in May again back to the old house that we lived in, the first place we lived. We bought it, and we moved back there when I was pregnant with Cindy. And Joe, the January before, had quit Goodyear and had gone into the LA County Sheriff's Department. And tell about that.
Oh yeah, I went through the academy.
He doesn't embellish very much. He had a hard time getting his shoes to a good spit shine on him, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yep. And that's the only time I took care of the finances was when he was in the academy, because he had so much studying to do.
As if we had a lot of finances, you know.
Yeah. And when we bought the house on Maxon, the weeds were waist high because it had been sold, and the big lot they built 3 or 4 houses behind us, and we were the front house. So we had to paint, and we had to clear weeds and plant grass, and we got it to where it looked really nice. It was still old. It was built in 1960, and we moved there in 1900, and we moved there in 1960. So we lived there until you were 7, 5, and 3. The girls were 7. Oh, I didn't tell about Cindy's birth. She was born October 23rd, November 23rd, 1960. So the girls are all 2 years and a month apart. Wasn't planned that way, but the Lord had it planned that way. Anyway, so we had our 3 little girls, and Joe had wanted a boy. And the first 2 times he wanted a boy, and then the 3rd time he didn't want a boy, he wanted another girl, because he said he would hate to have a little boy and have it henpecked by 2 older sisters. So anyway, we had 3 girls.
And we didn't have any room either.
No, they were all in the same room until we moved to, and then we moved to Ranchito and lived there for 13 years. And Judy and Sherry graduated from high school, from Arroyo High School, and we attended from the time I was 9 until I was 39. I attended the First Southern Baptist Church in El Monte. And when Joe and I were married, he was not a Christian, and he would only go to church with me. He wouldn't go to Sunday school, so I didn't go to Sunday school during that first year and a half. And then we had a revival, and Roy Hahn accepted Christ during that revival, and so did Joe. And that was wonderful, best thing that ever happened. And so we've been involved in church since then. I've really gone to 4 churches. A Nazarene church when I was 4 to 9, First Southern Baptist Church. Then when we moved to Camarillo in 1976, August of 76, we went to Faith Baptist Church for about 13 years. And then the last 16 or 17, we've gone to Camarillo Community Church here in Camarillo. And
I've gone to a lot of churches. Used to go to a church, different church every week.
whatever Sunday school bus would come by, his mother would put him on it. And I'm going to backtrack a little bit. When our girls were 5, 7, and 9, my daddy went to work on a Sunday morning, and he had a heart attack and was gone. He was 52, and Mother was 56, and it was a total shock. Daddy'd had a checkup, didn't say anything was wrong, and it was a very difficult time in our lives, especially for Mother. She just was lost without Daddy, and we lived close, 1.5 miles from each other, and during that summer after Daddy, he died July 17th, 1966, and during the rest of that summer, the girls took turns staying with Mother because she was lonely, and that until school started. And she had her Sunday school class and all these ladies that rallied around her, and she had good friends that, you know, they would go out to dinner and shopping, and they'd go on trips and stuff, so that helped a great deal. And when Cindy was going into her junior year in high school is when we moved to Camarillo. Our dear friends Sue and Roy Hahn had moved here several years before, and we came out here to visit them. And this one Memorial Day weekend, we'd come out here to see them, and on the way home, Joe and Cindy and Sherry decided we were moving to Camarillo.
Oh.
And I had nothing to say about it, and I didn't want to move. I'd lived there all my life and in El Monte, but anyway, Joe put our house up for sale, and the first people that looked at it bought it. And our first house that we bought, our old one, we paid $11,000 for it, and we sold it for $13,000. And we purchased the one on Ranchito for $16,000. And then when we moved to Camarillo, we sold it for $39,000. And
I made a killing.
Yeah, we thought we did. And Joe still worked with the same people at the Sheriff's Department, the same location, and I had to transfer. And the closest I could get to Camarillo was Van Nuys, and it was 40 miles from home, from Camarillo, and I drove that for about 2 or 3 years. And then I went to Woodland Hills and worked there for a couple years, then Santa Paula, then Oxnard, and that's where I finished working with the gas company when I retired in 1994. And Joe, tell something about the Sheriff's Department.
Okay, after I went through the academy, which was wonderful, they transferred me to the county jail And I spent exactly, in fact, I went to work there the night we graduated. You know, everybody had a day off, you know, but there was a couple of us, we had to go to work that night. And so we reported work and worked the graveyard shift for 2 years, right to the day. And then I finally got a transfer out to East Los Angeles Station, which is predominantly a Mexican area, and it was one of the rougher areas of the county at the time. And I spent about 7 years there working in the station till I got sick and had to have surgery, and they wouldn't let me work anymore in a patrol car. So then I got myself a job working in the courts, and I worked there for a while until...
What did you do?
I was a bailiff, you know, and or flunky, I guess you call them. Bailiffs are like flunkies, you know. And they...
Tell him about your judge.
Oh, I had a judge that was probably about 5'5", little Jewish guy. Very nice, but he was very frugal, to say the least. You know, he'd take postage stamps off of mail that would come to him that wasn't canceled and take the postage and use it again. You know, Pat thought that was kind of because he was poor when he was young. I said no. I said when he was raised up, his father owned the 2 square blocks that the City Hall of Los Angeles now sits on. So I said they weren't poor.
No.
You know. And after I got through with the bailiffing job, I went to work for a couple of weeks in the LA County Jail, and because they had a job change classification, and I no longer had a job as a bailiff. So they sent me to the jail, and that was just driving me out of my mind because it was just, everybody wants to play games in there, you know. It's a matter of the cons versus the cops, you know, and I just couldn't see it. So I got a hold of a good friend of mine that worked in our personnel department. He got me transferred into the latent print detail.
Who was your friend?
Jim Leslie.
Okay.
Jim Leslie, my good buddy. Went through the academy with him, worked in a patrol car, everything.
Tell him about the possum.
Oh no,
That's funny.
yeah, that was. Yeah, we were working in East LA one night and saw a possum crossing the street, so we decided we'd stop and detain it. And so Jim took a whack at it with his stick, and the thing rolled over on its back, just laid there. Jim reached down and grab it, and I said, better watch it. He's probably playing possum. Nah, he's dead. He went to reach him, and the thing jumped up and almost bit him, you know. And that was the last thing that possum ever did, you know. So, but that was the possum joke. But when I went to work for the latent prints, which was identification and fingerprints, and crime scene investigation, as they call it now, and don't believe what you see in the television because it's not true, you know. It doesn't work that way. But anyway, I spent my last about 15 years there, working there, and that was one of the most enjoyable jobs I think I had on a department. It saw a lot of different things, it's a lot of gruesome things, but it was a great job, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Which phase of it did you like the best?
Oh.
Flying.
Hmm?
In the helicopter.
Oh yeah, I like flying in the helicopter. We used to fly and take aerial photographs. Thanks for the prompt there.
You're welcome.
But that was my favorite. Especially, I used to fly out in the Antelope Valley quite a bit out there and take photographs where Judy and Greg live now, where there wasn't even anything there. But we used to take photos of the crime scenes when they find bodies out in the fields and stuff like that was left, stuff like that. So that was a fun job. Then I retired in 1987, after almost 30 years, just a little short of 30 years. And I never looked back on it. I mean, it was a great job. That I probably couldn't do it now. I'd probably get fired. So
we, I don't remember exactly what year it was, but Mother, after we moved up here to Camarillo, Mother lived still in El Monte, and she'd come out here and we'd go get her because she didn't drive freeways, and she'd come out here and stay for a few days with us, and then we'd take her home. And then she fell and broke her shoulder. Broke her shoulder. And oh, she also, while she was still there, Betty Cook called me one day, and Jack Clifford was here with us, our friend, and she said it was around February, the first part of February, and Mother was doing some Valentine cards for the kids, and Betty said she's not writing right, and she said I'm worried about her. And so anyway, we went in, and to make a long story short, Mother had a brain tumor the size of an orange, and her brain was over the tumor, and she went to City of Hope and had surgery, and she was in surgery for 13 and a half hours. That's not even that didn't include recovery, did it? That was actual surgery, and the doctor would call the nurses station every few hours because we were in the waiting room, and tell us about how the progression, and she was the second oldest that he had ever operated on. She was, and in fact, she spent her 75th birthday in the hospital, and they were great to her. I mean, they just took really good care of her, and when she came home, I worked and couldn't take off, and Joe's mother came down and stayed with Mother until she could, you know, I don't know if it was 2 weeks or what, until she was, you know, better. And she came out of that and, you know, lived alone for several years until she fell and broke her shoulder. And then after that, we decided she needed to come closer to us. And so this was difficult. Mother lived in our home there for over 40 years, and all of her friends were there, and she'd be coming out here, and she was going to go to a Heritage House, which is a assisted living, and she had her own furniture in her own room and all, but they had meals in the dining room. And she lived there for a couple, 3 years, and then she lived at another one in Thousand Oaks, Hillcrest Royale, for another couple of years. And then she wasn't really that happy there, and so Sherry and Bill said that if we agreed, they would build a granny flat onto their house, and Mother could come and live there. So they built a granny flat, and it had a small living room, kitchen, bedroom, and bath. And Mother used to fix her own breakfast and lunch, and she'd eat dinner with Sherry and Bill. And so she lived there only for a couple of years until one day she had a little tray that she kept her vitamins and stuff in, and it was on the range, and she turned the range on and burned it up. And we'd been noticing a few little things that Mother was doing that wasn't like herself. And so we decided that she couldn't live alone anymore. So Bill had an office, and they converted that into a bedroom for Mother. And she moved in the house and lived there. And then Bill's mother came from Torrance and rented the granny flat. In fact, she's still there. And Mother had Alzheimer's, and it just came on, you know, gradually and then faster. And so it was about 12 years that she had Alzheimer's. And the last 2 or 3 years, she didn't know any of us. She didn't remember Daddy. She didn't, you know, she just could not remember. And Judy and Greg had given her a little stuffed animal, a dog, and Mother loved that dog. She loved it, and then she wouldn't like it, and she'd pull its ears, and you know, I sewed on ears back and quite a few times, but she used to call the dog the baby white Jesus one day and the baby black Jesus another day, and I had her Sundays and Wednesdays during the day, and would get her when she got up and take her home when it was bedtime, and then Sherry had her the rest of the time, and she always went to church with us, and in fact, Mother passed away 2 years ago this July 16th, this past July the 16th, and she only missed one Sunday of church. We came home from church that day, and she wouldn't eat, and she wouldn't eat or drink anything, and she passed away a week and a half later on July the 16th, and that was a hard time. We all miss her still, and I have wonderful memories of both of my parents, and it was great to have her till she was 93 and a half. And say something about your folks.
Well, I lived with my folks until I was 18 years old, and went away in the service, and never had much when we were kids, but we had a lot of fun. I had a brother that was probably the most gullible person in the world, and still is.
And what is his name?
His name is Bob. And I have a new brother, a lot of people don't know about now, it's called Bill. He's actually not a blood brother, but he's a step half brother. So, and you figure that one out. But he lives in Waco, Texas, and Bob lives up in Live Oak, California. Yuba City. Yuba City, that's right, yeah.
And you have a sister?
And I have a sister, Donna, and she lives up in
Live Oak.
Live Oak, okay. And so that was the extent of my family, but my brother I was probably 6 or 7 years older than him, and I was like 19 years older than my sister, so when she was born, so I was never at home when she was raised. But my parents were always good to me. We had a good time, and I never realized, how much smarter my dad got until the 4 years after I went in the service. When I come out of the service, I didn't realize that he was a lot smarter than when I went in there,
I need to say something about Bill and Margaret. She was the best mother-in-law anybody could have ever had. And Bill was a rough old son of a gun. He was a body and fender man, and he was, like I said, rough and gruff, but he loved me. At first, I didn't think he did. We went to San Francisco to visit them in 2 months after we got married over Labor Day weekend. And Joe's parents used to play pinochle all the time, and I was just learning. And so we were playing that Saturday night, and I reneged. I didn't know I did, and he yelled at me. And I got up crying and went into the bedroom, and Joe came, and he didn't side with me. He says, well, I guess we can't ever visit my folks again. But I got over that. I was young, and Daddy didn't yell, and Bill was a yeller, and I grew to love him, and he was very good. He was very good to us. One time we needed some money for something. We were very poor, and they were down, and Bill gave Joe $25 or $35, and he says, but don't tell your mother, Joe, as if Margaret would have cared, But he was a good father-in-law, and I dearly loved him. Okay, now in Camarillo. We haven't talked about that much.
Okay, go right ahead.
Well, we're involved in our church, and Joe counts the money, and we're in soup and salad, and we both work in our AWANA program, and Joe has an adopt a garden, adopt a flower bed at church that he keeps weed free, and we clean the church offices once a week, and we have a small group Bible study in our home on Wednesday nights during the school year. And we love our church, and we have a good Sunday school class. Our over 60 age group is called the Agape class, and we just have a great teacher. He's not our age; he's younger, and he is really good. We really enjoy him, and our daughters live in. Our oldest lives in Lancaster, Judy and Greg, and their two boys, Alan and Rob. And Alan's married. He's 24, almost 25 now, and he and Lindsay have been married for 3 years. And so we feel fortunate. We get together with them fairly often. We meet them halfway between Camarillo and Lancaster and have dinner, and we enjoy that tremendously. And Rob's working, and he's a
diesel mechanic.
Diesel mechanic, and he works long hours and still lives at home, and he'll be 23 this October. And Sherry lives here in Camarillo, and Bill, and they have 2 girls, Nicole, she's 19, and Katie's 16. Katie just got her driver's license, and she's thrilled to death. And then we have Cindy, our youngest, that lives in Richardson, Texas. She went back there for the last 2 years of college to Baylor University and met Jack there. And then 2 of our girls married younger men. Greg is about 2 months younger than Judy, and Jack is about 5 months younger than Cindy, and he was a year behind her in school. So he finished school and the next year, and they were married that following August. And of course, and they've lived in Texas the remainder of their married life, and they have 3 kids. Mark is 17, Will is 15, and Janet will be 13 the end of October. So we go to Texas as much as we can, and they come out here. And we've lived in our house here on Gracia for 29 years, the entire time we've lived in Camarillo. And we work at home some, we work out. I work for Dole, part-time, Dole Products. And, not all the time, just occasionally whenever they need me for cooking or whatever. And like I said, I'm retired from Southern California Gas Company, and I worked for them 28 years. And last July 3rd, 2005, we celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary, but we started early. We went on a 3-day Ensenada cruise with all of our kids and grandkids and granddaughter-in-law, and there were 16 of us, and we had a great time. And I have to tell you about the picture that the kids gave us. On the first night of was it the first night of the cruise? They gave us a picture. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they gave us a picture, and it was of the 3 girls. And so I have to tell you the story about that. The day we left on Friday to go on the cruise, and we were supposed to leave here about 10:30 or 10 to board the ship in San Pedro about between 12 and 1. Well, Sherry and Cindy said, "Don't ask us any questions, but we have to leave early." So we didn't know what they were doing, and they left, and then we went on down. Well, what they had done, they had met Judy and Greg in Valencia at a photo place and had their picture taken. And at this particular place, they will have your pictures ready for you in an hour. So it's so hard to get the 3 girls together because they live in different, Cindy lives so far away. So they had it, brought it, and gave it to us that night. And they gave us an 8 by 10, which was Sherry's, and then they had made a larger one for us that they gave us later. But anyway, it's really a good picture of them. And then we had our picture taken on dress-up night on the cruise with all of our family. And we really had a great time. All the kids enjoyed it. I think the grandkids from Rob down really enjoyed Ensenada because Rob is very special to them, and he took Cindy's kids and Sherry's 2 girls with him to Ensenada. They didn't have to have an adult, they just had Rob, and then the adults went and did their own thing. Grandpa was the only one that didn't go to Ensenada. He stayed on the ship. He'd gone to Ensenada when we were there another time. So anyway, it was a fun cruise. I think everybody had fun. Everybody but Joe and I played bingo, and Nicole almost won. She came very close to winning. I don't know how much money, but anyway, quite a lot. But a miss is as good as a mile. But it was a very memorable time for us. And then our girls, Cindy sent out a letter to friends and family saying that they were going to put a memory book together. And she sent a page so that they'd all be alike and ask them to do memories and send it back to her. And she put it together in an album, and then she sent it to us. We got it on Thursday before our anniversary on Sunday, July the 3rd, and she told us we couldn't open it until then. And so we opened it and looked at all these. It took me a few days to get everything read that everybody had sent. Some sent pictures and notes, and when I was reading it, I've laughed, I've cried, I've smiled, and remembered maybe something they told that we did together. I didn't remember until they jogged my memory, but it's really a memory maker, and we have so many close friends that we don't get to see all the time, but they all wrote and gave us their regards, and it was a really nice gesture on all their parts. And
it's probably just as well that we went in January when we did.
Oh yeah.
Because I probably wouldn't have been able to go on our anniversary. So.
Why?
I had to have a little surgery.
What kind of surgery?
Oh, heart surgery.
He had triple bypass surgery March the 8th, and he'd been having pains for several months, but he didn't tell us, didn't tell me or anybody. And anyway, he went into the hospital on the 4th of March and had the surgery on the 8th. And he's doing pretty good now. He's coming back, lost a lot of weight, can't eat salt, sugar, or fats. But
everything is good, you know.
Anyway, we've had a good 50 years, and I hope we have many more together. Only the Lord knows how long we'll be on this earth, and I know that when we get to heaven, it'll be in His time. And I just pray that each one of us enjoys our children and our grandchildren, and maybe someday we'll have grandchildren that we'll be able to enjoy also. What else do you have to say?
Amen.
He agrees.
Well, I think she'd run out of stuff to say.
Okay, add more.
I don't have anything to say. I said more than I should have anyway.
No, you didn't. He talks more at home when it's just the two of us than he does in front of these little camera things.